Good morning, everybody. It is 11 a.m. Eastern on the 18th of July. This late July edition of the monthly webinar. Thank you for holding out an extra couple weeks while I got to enjoy some time away with my family. But we're back, and even though I was enjoying time away, we were busy. A lot of things going on over the past 4 to 6 weeks. With me, of course, is my team of fearless ATF ass whoopers, including Avis and Deborah over in the client relations team. Brother Brian will not be here today. He's actually landing from one of his various travels right now. And we're playing a game we play by phone called Gate or No Gate. Because when you land at Newark, it's always a crapshoot. Also with us is Chuck Gell from the California Yearly Service Plan, and I'm sure he wants to tell us all about a New York Supreme Court case that I heard a little bit about. Some big thing happened. You can fill us in. Michael Franzak is with us, our Director of Compliance. Michael Bouchard is with us, ATF Liaison and OPSEC Security Specialist, SME, and of course, Hank Yasek, our business guru. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. I will kick it off by handing things off to Chuck first for probably the most prolific Supreme Court decision discussion since Heller, Bruin case out of my home city here of New York City. Chuck, tell us all about it.
Yeah, just in case you've been living under a rock, the entire landscape of Second Amendment jurisprudence was rocked by an earthquake from Justice Thomas a couple weeks ago. He completely changed the tests that are supposed to be applied when a judge is evaluating a Second Amendment challenge to a gun control law, and that is actually more significant than the actual specific ruling about public carry in New York State, which also applies in other states. So the lawsuit challenged New York State's system for requiring that an applicant demonstrate a special need in order to get a license to carry a concealed firearm in public. In other words, some kind of souped up good cause, which was kind of like a death threat or a stalker or something like that before you could get or a lot of money.
Carry a lot of money. Yeah, that's the usual one.
Or you gave a lot of money to a politician because it was rigged in many states and in many instances. Anyway, so hardly anybody could get one. We eliminated that requirement. You now have the states and governments, local governments now have to give those out to anyone who meets objective criteria. You can't require some kind of special need and create this special privilege because it's a right. So that's great. The immediate effects of that are that California abandoned its good cause requirement. I believe New Jersey has too. Hawaii has. Stuff has been happening so fast I can't even keep track of it all. But a number of states that had this special need requirement have gotten rid of it. So this is the Second Amendment reckoning portion of this ruling. We now get to liberalize concealed carry across the country. And then you've got the blue resistance, where the Democrats are all trying to come up with ways to minimize the holding and make concealed carry ineffective. So they're expanding the definition of sensitive places. They're looking at expanding the definition of bad moral character, so that if you ever took a mulligan in golf, you're a bad guy and you don't deserve a permit. And sensitive places will be anything within 1,000 yards of a church, a school, or a stop sign, because they're just going to they want to make the permits useless. Meanwhile, in California, the Attorney General actually released the names and home addresses of 200,000 existing CCW holders, including judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys and women or men for that matter, who were stalked and trying to stay hidden So he has completely alienated those folks, all of whom are now joining the CRPA and other groups out here to fight back against the blue resistance. But so that's what's happening CCW across the states. If you're not in California, well, if you are in California as well, there will be a lot of people applying for these permits. Now the problem is there's not many handguns that they can buy in California because of this Unsafe Handgun Act and the roster requirement out here. You have to be on this tested. You have to have the guns tested and get on this roster, and you can't get on the roster unless you have a magazine disconnect and a loaded chamber indicator and a microstamping. So that roster is down to nothing. That's a lawsuit we'll be filing soon. Meantime, the bigger story really is that the standard of review that used to exist, which was akin to the standard of reviews that were applied in First Amendment cases where you had this rational basis test, intermediate scrutiny, strict scrutiny, there is no more standard of review. It's all originalism and text, history, and tradition, basically meaning you try and figure out what the founders would have tolerated at the time the Second Amendment was passed, or when the 14th Amendment was passed and incorporated the Second Amendment against the states. So you figure out what they would have put up with at that time. And if they would not have put up with whatever it is that you're looking at this time, then it's not constitutional. That's should be a lot of laws. The founders were looking for more things like the Kentucky rifle when they passed the Second Amendment. They weren't trying to limit, semi-automatics, which I don't think they even existed, but they weren't trying to limit better guns. They were trying to find better, more powerful guns. So I don't think assault weapon bans are going to stand. We've got challenges going against the unsafe handgun roster in California, the background check on ammo purchases in California, challenge to over designation of sensitive places. My understanding is there's already been a challenge filed in New York State, because I think the New York State was the first one to pass a law that actually put all these obstacles in place to get this license. And so there's already been a lawsuit challenge there against this over designation of sensitive places. They basically don't want you to be able to get from point A to point B with a firearm. They want to lock you, kind of close to your house, or maybe not even there if you're near a school. But it's all part of their effort to try and stop any progress that we might have made because of this ruling. So, like I said at the beginning, it is a seismic redo, a do-over for Second Amendment jurisprudence. I have dozens of lawsuits pending. I'm working with groups all over the country to file more, to strike down everything we can. Be on the lookout, I should say, for some groups. There's a group out of Colorado, which is now aggressively fundraising, but they really don't do that much. And some other groups are unfortunately the same. Everybody has figured out, all the Second Amendment advocacy groups has figured out that litigation is a good fundraising appeal. And so they try and buy their way on, or just beg their way on to a lawsuit as a co-plaintiff, so that they can then claim that they're litigating when in fact they're not. So you just have to be careful about who you're really supporting. At this point, frankly, the NRA is not really effective. They're involved in a couple lawsuits, but they're really not doing any strategy or any kind of strategic advancement. Other groups, frankly, are doing a better job right now. But there's going to be a wave of litigation brought by a lot of different groups against a lot of different issues. And I think it's all ultimately going to be for the good. It will certainly be better than it was in the battleground states. So what else can I tell you?
I don't know. I think you've done pretty well for yourself in that 5-minute monologue of yours. Well done. You've been at this lawyer thing for a while.
I've done this a time or two.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
and in the interest of full disclosure, my premises permit for New York City expires on my birthday, which is August 30th of this year. And I am in the process of filling out my renewal form, to which I am clicking the box for a full carry. And I'll let everyone know what happens, because I know that I'm at the forefront in the city of folks who are going to have this issue addressed. So by the time our next call comes around in September, I will know whether I've received my full carry in New York City, because they've already vetted me. I'm vetted. I can carry the gun in my house and protect myself in my house, which that's now gone away. So all interesting stuff. Let's keep the ball rolling. I'm going to move to Mr. Franzak next, because we represent 4 or 5 different parties in revocation proceedings that would not have otherwise been revocation proceedings. Oh, 6 of them. Okay. All of which have been scheduled for the fall, giving us the summer off and moving us closer to an election cycle, which is interesting. I thought the timing was interesting. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about, our favorite topic? I know you spoke to the Davidsons constituency last week about the 5 deadly sins. We've spoken ad nauseum about the 5 deadly sins. We can speak a little bit about how our 6 clients in these revocation proceedings all have matters that probably they would not have, or actually would not have been revoked, but for the Biden directive. Give us your 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Last Friday, right around 11 o'clock, I had the opportunity to participate through Davidson's on a roundtable discussion with approximately 2,200 plus FFLs from around the country. And the primary topic was the Biden 5 deadly sins, the comprehensive strategy that is to prevent and respond to gun crime and public safety that he instituted back in June, I think it was like around June 23rd or something like that of last year. And yeah, we do have some clients, 6 of them who are in that boat right now, where the main items at fault are the background check issues, where they did not complete a background check or fail to do a NICS recheck. Those are the main things. And we're only looking at maybe 1 instance, 2 instances possibly, but there's some other violations too, but those were the main reasons that they went into the revocation category for ATF. And as we mentioned that continuously, that this is not something that ATF enjoys or likes, but this is being pounded down to them by the Biden administration through the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, and they can't do anything about it except for the DIO, who leads the hearings. And that's who our targets are, to make them understand that the FFLs who are with FFLGuard, their license should not be revoked. And that was our whole topic of discussions. And I went into other issues about that, but nothing that I haven't already talked with everybody on the FFLGuard about already. One thing I want to pass on today too, that I just got off the phone this morning with ATF, Mariana Mitchell. She is the chief of the Firearms and Explosives Industry Division. ATF will be coming out with some more Q&As regarding the final rule 2021R-05F on Wednesday. They'll be put on the website Wednesday morning. But one issue that I was very interested in talking about was Cerakoting. And we've had a few FFLs who ATF was looking at for Cerakoting reasons. And these are type 01 FFLs who send out firearms that they receive to another manufacturer for Cerakoting. Years past, ATF always, and when I was with ATF too, Cerakoting is, and it still is, being considered a manufacturing. But ATF was then saying, okay, if you're doing this, you need to be a manufacturer. Under this rule, when these Q&As come out on Wednesday, for instance, if you are a dealer and you obtain firearms from a manufacturer, say 100 of them, handguns, you send these to another manufacturer for Cerakoting, it's under this veil of FFLs that you will not have to get a license as a manufacturer, which is great. And those guns do not have to be marked by that manufacturer who does the Cerakoting. So this is awesome news that's coming out. She says it'll be right on there because there's been a lot of questions about Cerakoting. This is something that's going to be awesome for a lot of people who do this. So, and we have some clients who are in that boat too, that ATF was waiting to finalize inspections because they were shipping guns out to be Cerakoted by another FFL. So it's going to be great news for those FFLs and for everybody in that same ballpark there. Couple other items just to talk about. As everybody knows, back in, what's the date of this one? It was June 25th of this year, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act went into effect. And it had a lot to do with, it gave a lot of significant resources for health treatment, school security, closes the loophole on the boyfriend domestic violence issue. Before it's just a spouse, now it can be significant other, long-term boyfriend, things like that. And also strengthen federal and criminal law regarding straw purchasing and firearms trafficking. So you may see more ATF agents coming out to your premise looking at, some 4473s for that firearms trafficking point of view there. Also going into effect right now regarding the new Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, ATF is working on a new 4473 as we speak, because next year I think it's up for revision again. But since this Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is in effect now, ATF is doing a new 4473, working on it because, as everybody knows, there's a new requirement in there regarding juvenile records. So they want to go back 10 years for anybody who's 18, 19, and 20 years old wanting to purchase firearms. They want to go back and look at those juvenile records. So ATF is going to be updating the 4473 for those checks where NICS will come back to you and say in 3 days, hey, we've got to look further into this juvenile record. Do not release this gun. So there'll probably be another check in a box for that. And they have 10 days then to, no more than 10 days to come back to you with a proceed or not, or deny. So that's going to be added to the form, that part of it, which is right. However, I had the opportunity to reach out to NICS on a couple of occasions. I've told Chris about this, and I was kind of shocked, and I'm asking them, hey, are you guys doing the background checks now for looking at juveniles? Or is this, because this is in effect now. I said, are you doing this? Are you looking at these records for juveniles? And the two NICS people I talked with the FBI basically said, no, that's an ATF issue. I said, no, it's not an ATF issue. This is your issue. You're doing the background check. And they basically cut me off. They just hung up on me. Twice I had two different people hang up on me, which was pretty interesting. But that tells me that they're not even looking at it right now. And they said they're waiting for ATF to work to give them instruction, but they do the background check. ATF just does the forms for this. So this is an interesting one. So I still don't know if the FBI is looking at this, but they would have to tell you when they conduct a background check, hey, we're looking at this this individual's juvenile records. So please hold off on this. And then you can use that one, the block at, what's it, item 32, I think it is. You can use that to put in additional information if you need to on the 4473, or let us know if you have any questions with it, if it does come up. I haven't heard if it has yet or not by anybody. So it could in the future. One other thing I wanted to talk about here is an interesting one. It's going to affect future FFLs possibly. It's a way that the Biden administration is trying to get more people licensed like yourself. It doesn't affect you now because you're licensed, but it could affect other individuals who possibly may need a license. Is they change the definition of engage in the business. Before it was with the principal objective of livelihood and profit. So basically ATF looked at anybody who was obtaining firearms and also selling. You had to have both of those to be engaged in a business. Now that's being changed to predominantly earning a profit. So that basically anybody who is, they're going to probably say earning a profit from selling firearms, gun broker, wherever else, they're going to need a license. So that's just not, it's not going to affect you, but it could affect other people who are selling firearms now without a license, and they're earning a profit on those sales. And I would probably say it has to be repetitively over a certain period of time, but I think I've talked to ATF about that also, and they're probably going to have to go to some type of a regulation to try to get that written to it, so it's more precise, so that there's no confusion out there as far as, you know, who can be licensed additionally in the future with that. And that's it for me this morning, Chris.
Thank you, sir. Always appreciate your input. I love the fact that you were on the dark side and now you've come over to the right side. And I'm sure that resonates with a lot of folks. Let me turn my attention to Mr. Bouchard, who had the opportunity to meet the acting director, meet a bunch of folks in an ATF group gathering for former ATFers and current ATFers. Mike, what was your general impression of what's going on over at ATF? What messages did you get that you can retransmit? I know there's messages you got that you can't retransmit, but what can you tell us about your visit to the mothership and what happened?
Sure, it was a good visit. Of course, the new director, Steve Dettelbach, has now been confirmed, so he's on the job. That's a good thing for ATF. I had worked with him back when I was a SAC in Baltimore. He's worked a number of ATF cases and is very familiar with ATF. He's going to have to get educated on the regulatory portion, because that's a big hill to climb for any new director coming in. But I did get to meet with the acting director, gave him some feedback on what it's like for FFLs to get revocation notices for minor administrative matters, in particular things that had never warranted a loss of a license in the past, and the relationship problems that it's going to cause for ATF with the industry. And he heard me out, and he's had one foot out the door. He's a U.S. attorney in New Mexico, so I asked him to pass that on. Had the same conversation with the deputy director, Margaret Richardson, who was acting director for quite a while, and the AD field ops and the DADs who handle industry operations. I'm not going to repeat their words per se, because a lot of it was, just because of personal relationships. But my feeling is what ATF is doing with these revocation notices is that they're trying to get the full story from everyone about any types of things that would have caused someone for errors and omissions or whatever occurred. And also to hear what you've done to make sure it never happens again. So I've passed those things on to Chris. So that's how we'll prepare for things. But the big thing they said is, no matter what, if you're doing NICS checks, we're going to come down hard on you. There's no reason not to do NICS checks. I explained we had a couple people who, did the right thing, waited, and the time elapsed, and they didn't do a new NICS check after they had gotten to proceed. I said those things need a closer look. So now with the new director in there, what I think they're going to do is package these up after the hearings, present these things to people at Justice who are pushing for revocations, and tell them, here's the situation, here's what their history is, their track record, if they have one, and what are your thoughts on putting somebody out of business for these type of minor issues. So it's going to be, and I think once Steve Dettelbach gets acquainted with the issues, he'll be able to be their guy that can go back to the White House in Justice and saying, this is ridiculous. We're wasting everybody's time. We've got good relationships with the industry. We want to maintain that. One thing they also are doing is every time you assist law enforcement, and ATF does what they call an incident report, significant incident report. They pass those on to headquarters. Headquarters is maintaining a list of all the times that FFLs have been proactive with assisting law enforcement. So anytime you have one of those opportunities, make sure you let your local ATF office know, even if it's a state and locals that you helped out with, pass that on to the ATF office. And they're trying to keep those in a file for all the dealers, plus comprehensively show that to justice that this is the type of relationship we have with the industry. We know how to handle and work with the industry to keep them compliant. Let us do our job. Pending
So,
any
Mike,
questions.
A couple different things you spoke about that I wanted to touch on, none of which I can remember right now, but every time you said something, I said, oh, I have to mention something about that.
You want me to rewind?
Rewind, and I'll stop you as you. Well, let's start with this. I just saw Mike Franzak respond to everyone about, is there a time frame that there needs to be a closing conference after an audit by ATF? Byron, my man, out in Arizona, asked that. And although Mike says no, I do recall in the administrative action order, there was some guidance given that it should be 6 months. But that was a few iterations ago. I don't know if that guidance is still there, and it's certainly not the law, and it's certainly not anything that needs to be that you could cite to as being hard and fast. But there was some loose guidance at some point that 6 months was the period of time to close a matter. It may not stick anymore. They're so busy doing other things. I don't know that they care. I know Todd Cotta's had an inspection going on for a long time out of Kings. I saw his note, and the ever intrepid and earnest Jeff Perry saying, well, call your IOI and ask them. And my view of the world is, don't poke the bear, leave them alone. We're trying to get through this period of time where they're just handing out revocation notices like Tic Tacs into a different time period where that doesn't happen anymore. Then we can start asking questions about where you are and what you're doing. So let's everyone just try to keep their heads low for as long as possible.
Chris, just a quick question in those regards, because if you don't have a closing conference, does that not restart your revisit clock at that point? In other words,
Correct.
Hey, we'll leave it open because it extends the time that they can revisit you.
Yeah, you're pushing that year out farther and farther and farther, which is a good thing.
Hey, Chris, one other thing too with that is per ATF, they have to provide you the licensee with an approximate date of their return to resume that inspection. And the reason for their delay, that's an internal thing that they have to provide you with that information before because they just can't leave and not come back for 5 months or something like that. They have to tell you, hey, I'm not gonna be back for a week or two because I'm going on vacation. I'll be back on this date. Or I've got to do an application inspection. I'll be back in 3 days or something like that. Let them, they should be providing you, if they leave, when are you coming back? Ask them, when are you coming back? I'll be back on this date.
So as Chuck's on the phone, so he can't hear me. So as one of the only two lawyers on the phone, let me ask everyone a lawyer question. If my client went through an inspection and the results yielded that there should be a notice of revocation issued, yet the inspection stopped on January 1st, and they didn't have the closing conference until August 31st, wherein a notice of revocation was issued thereafter. Don't you think that as the lawyer, I love that? So my guy, you're going to revoke my guys, but you waited 9 months, 12 months, 2 years. So what kind of threat to society were there that you just sort of took a back seat? I want as much time to elapse as possible, because if it elevates the federal court on an appeal from a revocation, I'm going to say they were no threat to the general public because ATF didn't move on it. They sat on this forever. So, to that end, that's how I feel about it.
Or Chris,
Mike,
here's
sorry.
another real quick one is, or if they started their inspection prior to June of 2021, you know, say like in April or May, and delayed that inspection till after the 5 deadly sins went into effect in June, it would have been a warning letter previously, and now it's a revocation possibly. So that's huge.
Yeah, timing is everything in life.
We have one of them.
No, we don't. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's just roll it. Well, I try and recall what I wanted to say about Mike's. There was so much fertile ground there for me to plow, and I can't remember any of it now because I'm old. Let's turn to Hank, our business guru. Hank, I think things have sort of leveled out in the industry. And what do you say? Tell me.
Yes, no, and maybe. So first, hey, for those of you that I saw out at Expo, it was a great time down there, down in New Orleans. Good food, good times, good people. And I want to bring into the fold, folding back to the 5 deadly sins. You know, I presented on the used gun climate that's coming forward with, you know, and I've seen this multiple times in our industry. When the economy turns down, used gun sales coming through the front door go way up, and used gun sales go way up. So there's a benefit to you there to engage with it. But in the spirit of this call, what I want you guys to focus on is making sure your team is properly trained on intaking used guns and making sure they're documenting everything properly, you know, with serial numbers, multiple serial numbers, importers, all that kind of stuff, you know, training them to make sure where to look. You get some of these 60s, 70s, 1980s era imports, you know, they're up on the barrel and they're not sometimes stamped in very well as to who the importer was. Make sure you get all of that information and train your staff on where to look and how to document these used guns. Because, you know, as I'm reading the tea leaves here, we're getting primed. And I'm already I talked to retailers after my talk, and they were saying and seeing the same thing, that we're going to be seeing a huge surge here from here moving forward over, my guess, the next year to 2 years of a lot more volume of used guns coming into your store. So take the time now while we're slow in the summertime to train your staff on proper intake of firearms, where to look for the serial numbers, what's, you know, where the importer marks are if it's an import gun, all those kind of pieces and parts. But to Chris, to your point though, on the general news side, things are pretty flat. Some stores are saying they're still above, you know, normal trends, you know, 2019 trends, and I can see that for sure, but they are seeing a downwards trend in the overall sales volume that they're doing. Chris, you're on mute.
Thank you. We have plenty of online resources and internal resources that can help train individuals. Please talk to our client relations team about how you can get access to those training modules. They are a huge help. We can also do the mock inspection for you. So we have a lot of things at your disposal as FFLGuard clients that you can certainly ask the client relations team about, and they can fill you in. The clients relations team represented today by Avis and Ms. Deborah. I don't know if we've seen any particular, oh, you know what? I know what I was going to say about Mike Bouchard. I got it. It just came back to me. We have a form in our library called the, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like the Law Enforcement Assistance or ATF Assistance Letter, where our clients can download the form. It's a writable PDF. And if you're asked to participate or assist law enforcement in any way, and they usually don't, or at least in the old days, this is a whole new, brave new world. They never gave you something on paper that said, you did a good, nice thing for us. Thank you. So we used to have a self-executing form that would go to the chief of whatever the law enforcement apparatus was that was doing that was asking you for assistance, saying, hey, dude, your guy named so-and-so came in on such and such a date and asked us to do such and such, and we helped them. And we're assuming that this is the way to go. And if it isn't, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to help them. That came into effect because of Fast and Furious, when guns were, you know, supposedly going over the border in assisting law enforcement situations. So the moral of the story is, if you can't actually get something from law enforcement that you're assisting that says, Chris's gun shop did a nice thing here, we have a form internally that you fire out and we put on file that says, hey, dudes, we helped you on such and such a date. And unless you're telling us we shouldn't have, we will just assume that we're doing the right thing. And those are the sort of things we would produce in a revocation hearing. So that was, I don't know how it all, the synapses flickered and came together, but that was one of the things I wanted to say about Bouchard. Hank, used guns, great observation. I moved on to how to do the training, and then I segued to Avis and Miss Deborah. What have we seen in the help desk over the course of the last month to 6 weeks that would cause everybody to take a pause? I know I've seen a lot of your, I've seen a lot of the weekly emails that everyone on this call should be getting every Friday, and includes a lot of the, in case you missed it. But what else do you have for us, Avis? Anything good going on?
Other than we're really still trying to keep, now that everybody's SOT has been renewed, we want a copy of it. Make sure you're getting that to us. We are updating POAs. We're still trying to get a hold of people. Please, please, please help us with this so that we can help you. We also have people that we're reaching out to. We don't see that you've signed up for any of our classes that are online that Chris was talking about. You do get at least one of these so that you can experience and see if you want your staff to do it. So please make sure if you have not received that, let us know. We can sign you up. I'm working on, many different things, but we have had a lot of questions across the board. We know there's things changing weekly, it seems like daily sometimes. Chris and everyone else is working very hard to get that information to us. So please be patient. We're trying to make sure we give you the right information, not just something to pacify you.
Yeah, and one thing for everyone to remember is when new rules or new regulations come out, a lot of times there's a start date, so they haven't started yet. A lot of times they don't know how to enforce these things. We're asked questions, for looking for absolute answers that no one has, not even the regulators themselves. So we try our best. That's issue number one. Issue number two is please, everybody, use the help desk. I'm happy to field text messages when I see them, but I'm not, so everyone knows I'm not a neurotic, crazy lawyer person that's like looking at his phone all the time. I'm a neurotic, crazy dad that does dad things with his kids. So, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm ignoring them or missing out on them, but I'm not one of these guys that's glued to my phone because I have an entire organization that works around me that helps me. The best way to get any message through to me or to someone in the know is by using the help desk. Unless, of course, you have an emergency. ATF is on site. You have a suicide on the range. You have a robbery, any of the big ticket items. But for just general, hey, I got a question stuff, the help desk is the thing for that. With that said, I think that should bring us to a close, 45 minutes or thereabouts in. Our next group meeting will be in September because we were going to go 6 weeks. And I would like to do it on September. What do you think, Avis? The 6th to the 13th of September? The 6th or the 12th? The day after Labor Day may be too much of a.
Yeah, that might be.
Let's do September 12th, Monday the 12th.
All right.
That'll be our next round. Obviously, we're happy to hear from you in the interim, but in the meanwhile, please stay safe, enjoy the rest of your summer, enjoy your Labor Day, and we will catch up soon.
Are we done recording?